I have none other than the amazing assistant running backs coach for the Washington Commanders, Coach Jennifer King. What's up, Coach?
What's up? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, what do you like to be called? Do you want to be called Coach King, Jennifer? Like, what is it?
We chilling, so you can call me
Okay.
whatever you like. No pressure.
Okay, sounds good. I'll stick with Coach because that's just what I call you.
All right.
Awesome. So we're going to start off the podcast with a little game of this or that. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this or that, it is a game to allow us to get to know Coach a little bit better. We're going to come to her with some rapid fire questions, and she'll have to choose quickly whatever her preference is. Okay? You got the rules, Coach?
Got it.
Awesome. All right. So, podcasts or books?
Podcast.
What's your podcast? Besides the Success Playbook podcast only on the Revolt Podcast Network.
Of course. I listen to the Pivot. It's a couple of I listen to, but I definitely make sure I catch that one every week.
Okay.
They always have really good interviews.
Awesome. I love it. I love a good podcast.
Yeah, it's good for the drive into DC and stuff. So I listen to a lot of them. Yeah.
Hot cereal or cold cereal?
Cold.
Okay. What kind?
So since I'm an adult now, I tried to get away from the kids cereal. So I started eating this one cereal that I can't even think of the name of it. I think it's like Magic Spoon or something. It's supposed to be like less carbs, less sugar. It still tastes pretty good. It's expensive. It's adult prices, but that's what I've been on lately.
That sounds like something from Whole Foods.
Yeah, they have it all over the place. I usually order it. But yeah, they have it. I know they have it at Target.
Okay. Fancy cereals. I love it. Okay. What's your go-to meal to make if you cook?
Oh boy. This is gonna be a throwback because I haven't made it in a long time, but I used to make really good smothered chicken.
Where are you from, Coach?
I'm from North Carolina.
Oh, you're from the South. Okay, so that makes sense. A smothered chicken, soul food kind of. Okay, we're going to get into that actually with our next question. Thank you for playing our game.
Of course.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit. So tell us, who is Coach? Like, tell us about your childhood, where you grew up, all that good stuff. Who is Coach Jennifer King?
Yeah, I grew up in Reidsville, North Carolina. It's a small town. Greensboro is probably the biggest city that is near. So we're about 20, 30 minutes away from Greensboro. Just a small town. People love sports. That's how I got into sports. My older sister plays sports. I was always at a game and just kind of started playing myself and just fell in love with sports. And ultimately that took me to college and was able to play 2 sports at Guilford College there in Greensboro. And, got into coaching after that. I was coaching, basketball, obviously, but sports has just been a part of my life for a really long time.
Dope. And you say you played 2 sports while in college?
Yeah. So growing up, I played everything. High school, I did like 5, but in college, I did basketball and softball. Going to a smaller school because they let me play both. So it was a great experience. I had a really good time.
Oh, that's what's up. How did you have time for 2 sports and your studies?
It was a lot. I feel like I kind of been busy ever since I was a kid, playing a lot of sports. Sometimes I would have 3 different practices in the afternoon after school, different sports. So I feel like I was always doing a lot, even in college, playing those 2 sports. I was an RA, I was on the judicial board, just a bunch of other stuff I was involved in. So I was heavily involved on campus as well as athletics.
Wow. So an RA is a job in itself, and you play sports, and you did all. Okay. So I'm going to ask you about time management a little bit.
Yeah. Obviously, it's just something I feel like it's in me just because I've had to do it since I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as I got out of school, I need to do my homework just because I wasn't going to get home till like 9, 10 o'clock at night because of practices. So just figuring out the time to do things. And now just as an adult, one thing at a time is what I try to focus on. Not try to do too much.
I love that. So it sounds like I'm hearing you say like discipline. Discipline has played a major factor in your life.
Yeah, discipline's huge. I wouldn't be where I am now without it. And I think it's something that, my parents instilled in me at a young age. Just being disciplined in whatever you do, and whatever you're doing, try your best at it and make sure you're doing your best at it.
Dope. I love it. What's your morning routine?
I mean, we live a different life,
Yeah.
coaching in the league, but I mean, we're in the off season right now, so I feel like I get to sleep in. So I get up at like 6:15, which is sleeping in for us. But I'm usually in the.
Is sleeping in.
I mean, I don't like it, but that's part of the job that I have. We're in season. It's earlier than that. But just get into the office. Eat breakfast at the facility and just kind of get the day started. So things get going pretty quickly once you get into the building. So it's not a big routine. It doesn't take me long to get ready in the morning. So usually, I'm in the office before 7.
Dope. Awesome. Okay. So tell me about, so I know you're into sports. Of course, you work for the best NFL team in the league. But like, who are your teams? Who are you rooting for besides the Washington Commanders, of course? Who are your favorite sports teams?
I mean, obviously, being in DC, I like to see the DC teams doing well. So I go to Mystics games all the time. I catch some Wizards games. Waited to my first Nationals game not too long ago, which was a lot of fun. Growing up in North Carolina, it was more of the Panthers, the Hornets, University of North Carolina. So I still check in on them, but I kind of rock with the DC team just because this is where I am now.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you've played professional football, right?
Yeah, I did. I actually played on both of the women's teams here in DC. So the DC Prodigy and the DC Divas. I played in North Carolina for like 10 years, and then I came here and played and was in New York for a year or two.
That's so awesome. So like, I'm just so intrigued by that. I'm gonna have Lois Cook on the podcast a little bit later, but like, what are the differences that you see in the women's team versus the team that you're currently working for?
Well, I mean, the obvious difference is, our guys get paid handsomely to play football. And the women's game's not there yet. So you may come out of pocket for some things, and it's truly for the love of the game. But it's some amazing athletes playing. I'm on the board of the WNFC league now. Obviously, I'm partial, but I think it's the best league, in women's football. We have our championship weekend coming up, which is going to be great. It's at the Star, which is a Cowboys facility in Texas. So it's going to be a whole weekend full of activities and just, cool events. And I think, it's just it shows you where women's football is now. To have an event at the Star is a really big deal.
Yeah, to that point, even during this past Super Bowl, like it was a commercial during prime time highlighting women's football, which was amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome. I've competed against both of those women, in that commercial and on flag football side, and they're both awesome, and it was so cool to see them, during the Super Bowl in the commercial. I think they did a great job.
That's what's up. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to pivot to our next show segment. So this segment is called Put Some Respect on My Name. Okay, so some may not be aware of, who you are and all of your accomplishments, but for those who are not aware, I'm going to enlighten them. So you are the first full-time Black woman coach in the NFL. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's correct.
So humble. You're just so humble. Put some respect on Coach King's name. So Coach King, walk us a little bit through some of your additional career highlights. So I know you have this amazing position. You are the first of, many to come after you. But tell us a little bit, like, what was the process leading up to that?
Man, I have a wild journey. Obviously, for the sake of time, I'll breeze you through it. But as I talked about, when I graduated college, I started coaching college basketball in North Carolina, and I was assistant there for about 9 years. And during that time, I was also a police officer for like 4, because I was a volunteer coaching basketball until I got bumped up. Ultimately, I went to Johnson Wales University in Charlotte, where I became the head coach there. And when I moved there, I was still playing football, and our offices were literally right beside the Carolina Panthers facility. So, I could hear practice. I used to watch practice all the time. And that just really kind of made me want to be over there just because I was so close. And ultimately I had a really good career at Johnson Wales. We won a national championship I got to be National Coach of the Year, and things were really great. But I met Coach Rivera actually in Florida, who was the head coach of the Panthers at the time. So we were next door, but I ended up meeting him in Florida at the women's football forum, and we kind of hit it off. I let him know where I was, who I was, what I wanted to do. He invited me over for 2 days, and I was hyped, to be over there for 2 days. And those 2 days ended up turning into like 5 months. So I was just there all the off season through training camp as well. And around October of that year, I got invited to go work for the Arizona Hotshots. One of those guys knew someone with the Panthers. They spoke highly of me. And so I left basketball, just walked away in the middle of the season to move to Arizona to start coaching football full time. And when that ended, I came back to Carolina and worked with the Panthers again for that same time frame. And then I ended up at Dartmouth, where I was there for the 2019 season. And after that season, Coach had became the head coach here in DC, and he invited me to come be a full season intern. So the 2020 season, I was a full season intern working with the offense. So work with the running backs, also help quality control, and then at the end of that season is when I got my promotion.
Awesome. I love how you just breeze through like all those are major events that you kind of just breeze through, and I just want to unpack it. So you say you met Coach in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So what was that? What did that look like?
Oh man, it was it's kind of a funny story. So the conference, you have a bunch of people in football there talking, and I ended up getting in with Coach Rivera at his roundtable. So my prime objective at that roundtable was to not only stand out, but just let him know where I was and who I was. Like I was literally next door to him. Like we're talking like 50 feet, like that close. So I did that, and I don't even remember, but Coach Locust, who was with Tampa, and now she's with Tennessee, she was at the table, and I didn't even remember she was there. Like I was so locked in on what I was trying to get done. I didn't even know. She had to show me a picture, which was funny. She literally was sitting at the table, but I was so locked in and focused, and just was able to start building a relationship with him from there.
I love that. And then you said that once he got the job at the Panthers, he brought you along.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was there for 2 days, rookie mini camp, which I was ecstatic. And then I kind of kept getting invited back. So at the end of rookie mini camp, he was like, oh, you should come to our off-season workouts. That was cool. And then, you should come to OTAs. Oh, you should come to mini camp. Oh, you should come to training camp. And it just kept, building. And, from that time, it ended up being 4 or 5 months.
So when you met Coach initially in Florida at the NFL Women's Football Forum, up until the time when he took the job in North Carolina, am I hearing that you like maintained the relationship and you kind of stayed in front of him so he didn't forget about you?
Oh, of course. You can't you can't build a relationship like that and not check in every once in a while just to see how they're doing. And it was next door, so sometimes I would stop by to watch practice, just to be there. And he was a great guy, so it wasn't like it was difficult or anything like that. And obviously he saw something in me, so I just wanted to be appreciative and also continue to to foster that relationship.
I love that you're saying that because and I'm sure you encountered this as well, like we get bombarded by so many people who want to get into the industry, especially college students, and they're always looking for a mentor. And it's like you get that first connection, but then they stop reaching out to you. And I'm like, okay, what happened? Like we're supposed to be building rapport. I want to help you get to where you are. So I love how you're emphasizing like, nah, I met Coach and then I held on to that relationship. I love that.
Yeah, like you said, it's tough, I think, now for some people to have those genuine relationships, but you have to do it. And, I always say, I think I got to where I am now partly by doing things I didn't want to do, talking to people I may not want to talk to, going to events I may not want to go to, but end up meeting these amazing people at those events. So, it's hard for me to say no to things like that just because of you never know who you're going to meet. And it's not always someone you're going to meet that can necessarily help you, but just, a word, they might give you a piece of advice along the way. So, I love attending things sometimes that I may not want to go to just because you never know what's going to happen.
So are you an introvert or extrovert by nature?
I think by nature, I'm more of an introvert. I can turn it on when I need to, yep. But, if it was up to me, I'd probably just hang out against the wall most of the time observing.
Yes. That's exactly how I describe it. I'm an introvert, and people assume I'm an extrovert, but absolutely not. I'm an introvert. My preference is to be in the corner. But to your point, like, I know how to work a room. I know how to turn it on, turn it off, and yes, work my magic.
Yeah, I mean, closed mouths don't get fed, man.
Ex-
You got to be able to speak to people.
Teach the people, Coach King. Teach the people. So when you transition from being an intern to a full-time coach, like walk us through that story. Like what happened and then what were you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of lame. It's not as exciting as people think. I mean, he told me we were
You mean
still.
they didn't have like cake and balloons and stuff for you?
Nah. It was very low key. We were actually just preparing for it. It was a game that week. We were in that season, and he dropped by my office just to kind of let me know what he wanted to do. I told him thank you, and I kind of just went back to what I was doing at the time. So it wasn't like some huge story. And then I sent a text out to my parents and told them, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that moment, did it hit you like, yo, I just made history?
Oh, absolutely not.
Really?
I was just excited to be on board. And like I said, we were preparing for a game that week, so I was locked in on what I was doing. So I didn't even think about any of that. I really didn't think about any of that until it came out kind of in the news. I just never thought about it.
So humble. So humble, Coach King. I love it. So what are some of your core philosophies around coaching and player development? Like what are some things that you really like your solid core points?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just relationships. Building those one-on-one relationships with each of your players. A football team is built of a lot of players, but in our individual room, we have a much smaller group. So there's no reason that we can't build relationships with each other, to know them beyond football, to know their families, their kids, all of those things, because it's important, because you don't want to just always talk football. That's not how you reach those guys sometimes. And at the same time, you also want to know if something's wrong. And if you have a true relationship with them, something's wrong. They don't got to tell you. You just already know. So I think things like that are very important. And then once you build that relationship, that's when you can really start teaching and helping them get better and just helping them on the field. So that's my main thing. The second thing, I think at the level that we're at, loyalty is super important. Being where your feet are planted. Coach always talks about that, and just really being locked in on the task at hand, and not really looking ahead or looking around too much, but just staying locked in on where you are. Because I think every job that I've had, I've gotten the next job by doing that. I wasn't looking for jobs. I was just trying to be the best where I was, and someone found me from there. So I think it's important that we lock in on those things that we're trying to do.
That's awesome. Be where your feet are planted.
Mm-hmm. Be where your feet are. That's what Coach said.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this next segment is called Life and Success. So I'm going to ask you a little bit more about success and all things about life. Pretty self-explanatory.
All right.
So I know we talked about, you having this big background in sports, but was it always your dream to be a coach in the NFL?
No, it was actually never my dream to be a coach in the NFL, just because I never saw somebody that looked like me doing it. That's why representation is so important. I was fine in basketball. I love basketball. Things were going well. I was on track to have a very successful basketball career. And then football kind of presented itself. So once it presented itself, then yeah, that was the goal. But it wasn't something that I dreamt about growing up. I was just happy to be a fan, to watch games. Watching a game, it was never anybody looked like me. So it was just, that dream was never there.
Wow, representation is so important.
Absolutely. And I think that's something now that, you don't take lightly, just being in the position. It's something that, the other women in the league, we talk about all the time. Like, obviously we're here to work and do a great job, but at the same time, we know that there's people watching us, which is cool, to be that representation we didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So how do you define success?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I think a lot of success is relative to the person. Obviously my success may not be your success. So for me, it's happiness and, having the opportunity to do something that you love. that's success to me, and everyone's journey is different. Sometimes what you may love or what you want to do may not be the most lucrative or whatever, but if you're truly doing something that you're passionate about, it's a great feeling.
I love that. So along the same line, so I wrote a book called The Art of Taking L's. So here at the Success Playbook podcast, we know that an L is like failure, loss, adversity, some sort of, something bad, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me about an L that you may have taken, some sort of failure you may have experienced, that's allowed you to be further on your journey, that's ultimately shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest tests I think I faced, especially in football, after my first time with the Panthers, I went coach in Arizona, and I came back. After that internship, coach was trying to bring me on in Carolina, to be there for the season, and just didn't get worked out. A lot has to go into that, budgets and ownership approval and all types of things, and it just didn't happen. And obviously, I could have been discouraged or whatever, but instead, I stayed where my feet was planted, like he talks about. I stayed around. I didn't, forget Coach Rivera. He didn't get that happen. He didn't get that done for me. But it wasn't anything like that. I understand the business. I understand why it didn't get done, and I was fine with it. I was still thankful for my time there. And like I said, I was still around. I knew the security people. I knew everybody, so I could go over into that facility anytime I wanted to, probably. But I went for practice, and that was it. I still grew with him. I still was growing in football as well, and that didn't end our relationship, and ultimately, it paid off.
I love that. So your failure, or I guess hearing the word no, kind of allowed you to push closer towards ultimately your journey, right? Like hearing them say, "Hey, no, it's not approved yet." Like you were still encouraged to continue to reach out to coach, and because you had your mind on a goal.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a not yet for me, not just a no. So, I think, like I said, we stayed in touch. And he told me just to stay ready. So that's what I did, just trying to get better. And that was a time for me I could use to just keep improving as a coach as well. And obviously I went to Dartmouth after that time and, grew as a coach there. We ended up winning our championship there. And so it was a great experience. Got to learn from a great coach. Coaches up there, and it was a really good experience.
It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, like from your whole career path, that building key relationships and having strategic relationships has been key. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. I mean, yes. It's sports. Yes. you gotta be able to know some people, and I think that's what I always tell people when I ask for advice is that you got to build relationships. At the same time, making sure you're preparing yourself, because ultimately you want those relationships to give you an opportunity. And what are you going to do with the opportunity? If you're just focusing on building a relationship, you're not ready for that opportunity. In sports, you might only get one time. There's a lot of people that want your job. So what are you going to do to make yourself different? So that's something I always tell people.
Facts. So that's key too, like being prepared when the opportunity presents itself. Like, do you know what you're going to say? Because when you met Coach in Florida, you were locked in. Like, you obviously prepared. You didn't even know the young lady was sitting at the table. The other lady was at the table.
Yeah, I was focused.
I love it. Okay. So Coach, I have a lot of aspiring sport professionals, aspiring athletes who listen to my podcast. So what is some advice that you can share with them from your experience and from your journey, like something that can help them?
I think locking in on what you want to do is big. Because I know I get a lot of messages, people who want to work in sport, they don't know what they want to do. And there's so many parts of sports. That's why it's such a ridiculous thing to say that you just want to work in sports. Mm-hmm. Do you want to work on the business side? Do you want to work in, social media? Do you want to work on the actual team part? Like, what do you want to do? So I think it's important to lock in on that, and then start making connections with people who do the things that you want to do. And it only takes one yes. So, don't be discouraged if you send an email and no one replies. or, whatever, like just move on to the next one. Cause it only takes one, for one opportunity. So that's the biggest thing, is don't get discouraged if it's something that you really want to do. And then going back to what I was talking about, just building those relationships, and genuine relationships, even if it's someone that can help you, you don't have to go into the relationship just thinking, oh, they can help me, so I'm gonna talk to them. Like, it's so important to build general and genuine relationships with people, because that means a lot. And most people can see right through it if it's not if it's not genuine. So I know those are two things that I always say.
Yes, like, before you ask me for something, can you ask me how my day was? Like,
Yeah.
reaching out on LinkedIn for an internship, like, okay, I have feelings too.
Yeah, get in line, right? Everybody wants that.
Yeah, so that's so important, building those genuine relationships and just, not coming off like self-serving. I think that's excellent advice.
Yeah.
So the season's coming up. How excited are you?
I'm super excited. It's a lot of good things I think going on in our building. The guys have been great this off season. We had a really good off season program. It's just exciting, to be here before we know it. But I'm definitely ready to get back at it and hit the grass.
Love it. And how can we support you?
Oh man. The biggest support, just this is like a shameless plug, but my organization, King Group NC, we do a bunch of programs for kids. We have a backpack program we're working on now. It's going to be really cool. So we're always, looking for donations to help with that. And ultimately, we're going to have events also in the DMV area. We did a coat drive with the team last year. We want to kind of get boots on the ground as well and do some things for the kids in the community here. So that's kind of how you can help me, and just keep wishing me well, sending those positive well wishes and prayers my way as well. They're much appreciated.
Absolutely. And you all are accepting donations all year round?
Yeah, year round. So our website, kinggroupnc.com, and also we're on socials as well with the same handle. So no, I'm not too hard to find.
Terrific. Yeah, so what is your social media so people can follow you?
Yeah, I always forget this, but Instagram is Jennifer.King5 and Twitter is Jennifer King5. So that's usually where I'm most active, is on those two.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we're definitely sending you well wishes and prayers, and we are keeping you lifted during the season. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.